Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Aga Lavrinovic. I'm a life coach and mentor for moms. And today, my guest is Jenna Peterson, and we will talk about connection before correction. Jenna, I would love you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. So my name is Jenna Peterson. I wear lots of different hats, and one of my roles is as an infant early childhood mental health consultant. So I support early childhood educators to connect with children in their classroom. So we support social and emotional wellness from the child to the teacher to the program. So we really support holistically the whole system of care when it comes to young children. I also teach at a college. I teach a child development course, and I've also been a developmental specialist doing developmental testing on children birth to age 5. So lots of different roles. Most importantly, I am a human, and I really just advocate for being, bringing a voice for the baby and really helping adults attune to baby and toddlers' cues, just to really support healthy social emotional development.
Thanks so much, Jenna. This is so impressive. Would you like to say a few words also about Roots of Resilience?
Yes, definitely. So I'm also the executive director and founder of Roots of Resilience. And so Roots of Resilience is a program where we're focusing on preventative care. And so what that means is the promotion and prevention of social emotional concerns or developmental concerns later in life. So just to kind of catch you up on how I came to build this program. So through my experiences over the last, 10, 15 years, I have really seen the same message come through all of my experiences. And that is, I wish I knew this when I had a baby, or I wish I knew this when I, was a young parent or was a younger parent. And so with that also is so much neuroscience and neurobiology around connection and attunement and attachment. And so I felt like a lot of this information was staying in the spaces of research, academia, early intervention, and I really wanted to just get it out there to the general public. And so we're very much in the grassroots phase of Roots of Resilience, but I'm really excited about building a platform and a community around, supporting parents of young children birth to age 3. And so our main focus is relational health. And on top of that, we're going to be focusing on development as well, but really just increasing access to early childhood supports is the goal.
Yeah, and I want to also remark that if someone is watching us now who has children that are older, some information that Jenna will share with us will be also useful and very beneficial for you to know. Because as you said, there's so many things about parenthood, about motherhood in particular, that are, I wish I knew kind of information. So I'm so grateful that you're doing it, Jenna.
Yeah, thank you so much. So today I really, we're going to just have a conversation around, connection before correction and what that means, and, what that means practically as far as interacting, and then also what that means from a science perspective too, as far as how our brain is developing, particularly young children. I can go ahead and just start out by saying,
please do, yes.
And please stop me, I can ramble, of course. So I'm very passionate about this work, so I can talk.
I love passion, Jenna.
Yeah.
Keep it up, yeah.
Right, so essentially, the idea around connection before correction is really just thinking about, when we think about brain development, and particularly young children as their brain is developing, young children birth to age 3, particularly the first year or two of life, they don't have the cognitive functioning to be able to think and plan and organize their thoughts in a way that we can as adults. And so they're very much emotional bodies and emotional brains, and that is what we can say is online in the baby's brain, is the ability to recognize facial cues, to they're sensitive to sight, they're sensitive to sound, they're sensitive to touch. And so the ability to regulate, which really just means stay in balance between an adult and a caregiver, all has to do with being able to notice the baby's cues. And so what that means is, if you're engaging with a baby and the baby looks away, rather than forcing the baby to look back at you, really honoring that the baby's that experience might have been too much, and now they're all done with that experience. And so just honoring that cue. And so what that really does is build up the child's capacity for resilience, because for young babies, they're building their stress response system very early on. And so when they're able to feel regulated over time, they're able to then take in more information and learn. And so as babies are responded to consistently, predictably, and over time, they're able to then start to use their higher functioning brain, which could look like in an infant that they're able to think through, how do I get that rattle in my mouth? They're doing tummy time, and they're looking at the rattle, they're reaching for the rattle, they grab the rattle and they put it in their mouth. All of that takes so much brain function, and that's cognitive skill for a baby. But if a baby is dysregulated, they're not able to access their frontal lobe and to think through, how do I maneuver my body to grab that rattle and put it in my mouth? And so that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about attunement, is just noticing that when the baby is calm and able to connect with you, and honoring that. And so that's really what we're talking about when it comes to connection.
So this makes so much sense, Jenna. And at the same time, when I think about it, as moms, usually as a new mom especially, there's so much stress, there's so much anxiety often, right? So I feel like for many moms that I've spoken to, and I know it from my own experience, I bet that many times my anxiety or my fears or something really got in the way of my interactions with my children. You know how especially parents of babies, there's so much overly focused on the milestone. When is my child gonna reach this milestone? So sometimes I can imagine, I mean, that's kind of far away in time from me right now. It was wild that I did with this for my children that are 8 and 10 now, but still there's this, I definitely imagine myself being too anxious to really pay attention to what it is, So I feel like this being so important for babies, we need to also emphasize how important this for parents to be able to really prioritize, or rather not being able, but really kind of shift to being able to prioritize their own well-being, right?
Right. Yeah, and I love that you bring that up, because it really all comes down to the nervous system interacting with another nervous system, right? And so nervous system, what that really means to, if people, it's a new term to people, is really just our physiology. So our heartbeat, our reaction to environmental cues, things like that. And so if we're feeling dysregulated, anxious, it's stressful having a new baby. And so sleep deprived, right? All of those things, giving grace to yourself and knowing that how you're feeling is okay and it's normal, and really just noticing where you are in that state. So if you're noticing you're really maybe agitated, or maybe you're withdrawn, just noticing that within yourself and being able to seek out support, or really coming just back to your breath can be really helpful too. And just being able to breathe and help ourselves calm down, or get back to a state where we feel a little more in balance and regulated.
Right, because not only in this state we're not able to really kind of pay attention to a baby looking away because we're too focus on something else. But
Right.
also I feel like, and I heard that many times from different sources, that really babies very early pick up, as you say, the nervous system to nervous system interaction is life. So the babies pick up on our stress, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
How can that affect babies?
Yeah.
In this kind of invisible way, so to say.
Right. Yeah, that's a really great question. So really, what the science is showing, it's not about the one-off times when, maybe we're overwhelmed and we're not responding to all the cues all the time. It's really about the consistent, predictable behaviors and interactions that impact stress response systems for babies and impact brain development long term. So it's, the inconsistency of responding to cues, the inability to soothe the baby when they're distressed. So really just being that safe haven for the baby's emotional experience is really what can help build resilience in young children. And so it's not necessarily when we're sometimes not responding,
Right.
it's the consistency over time. And that's what when I say we, I would say the literature talks about toxic stress. And so that's a really good pivot to kind of go into the different types of stress too. So we have positive stress, which is the kind of stress that we all experience on a daily basis, right? You're running late for a meeting, you can't find your keys, whatever it is, the positive stress where your nervous system goes up a little bit, but it comes right back down, right? So you have these ups and downs of your stress response system. And that is what builds up resilience, because we need to have a little bit of stress in our life. And then you have moderate stress. So moderate stress would be, from an early childhood perspective, is when you might have more prolonged stressful experiences, but they're able to be buffered by a responsive caregiver. And so what this could look like is a child changing daycare centers, or maybe the family moves. And so those can elicit, because again, it's not controllable, predictable, consistent, it's a shift in the child's experience. They might have a little bit more elevated stress in their system, but it's buffered by a supportive caregiver, right? And so when we talk about toxic stress, that's what the science and literature is really finding. That's what really impacts the architecture of the brain. So we're talking about how the neurons are firing in the brain, how it's getting organized, how your stress response system is getting laid down in the brain. And then, all development is built on top of that, right? Because skill begets skill when it comes to early childhood. So that's really what the science is saying. It's this prolonged experience. And it's more so in more toxic environments, like if you're experiencing prolonged domestic abuse, poverty, and it's also important to recognize that they are not correlations, but they're not causations, but correlations. So it's not to say that a family that's experiencing poverty is the child's going to have an impacted stress response system, but it's just knowing that they're at higher risk for that.
Right. That's very important, I guess. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Which also, I liked it how you framed it in a very simple language. One-off time doesn't make such a difference, which really is an invitation for us to have some grace for ourselves, right? Sometimes when we aren't able to connect, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's what building up a support system can also be really helpful too. And parenting can be an isolating experience, and being able to be in connection with others, whether that's a partner, a group, a mom's group, or a supportive system where people are having the same experience as you, and we can talk about different things that are helpful, or different similar experiences, shared experiences can help normalize the process, which can help bring down the stress, right?
Right. Oh, that's so important. I so much believe in that. Okay, so let's go back to the babies. So to paying attention to the cues. I have the impression that I interrupted you, Jenna, with my question and remarks here.
Yeah, so be more, could you be a little more specific about the question?
Yeah, how, so to optimize baby's development and also nervous system development, it's important to pay attention to the cues. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So thanks for clarifying. So essentially, this is a really easy way to think about it. There's something called what we call serve and return. So essentially, if you think about it like a tennis match, the baby will serve a cue and then we return the serve. So it's kind of like this back and forth tennis match. And so really, it really comes down to be as simple as that. And that's what research is saying, is being able to have this supportive, natural back and forth interaction is what builds up healthy brain development. And so I can give an example. So one example might be for a young toddler, if they look up and they see an airplane and they point, and then maybe they don't have language yet, so they're pointing up, and then the parent will look as well, and they'll share that experience. And then they'll say, oh yes, that's an airplane. And then maybe the baby or the toddler will then respond after that. And then the adult responds again. And so it's this back and forth interaction. And so at the same time, so that's building up healthy brain development. And at the same time, when we talk about milestones, going back to that, so that's starting with connection first. But then when we're talking about milestones, that's actually building language development, right? So the child is giving a cue, maybe they don't have language yet, and then you're adding a word to that object, the airplane. And so later that child might see an airplane and say airplane, and before he didn't have that language. And so that's an example of how we're starting with connection, and then we can build developmental milestones on top of that.
Gosh, when you say that, Jenna, I just feel like this connection generally is so universal, because even if your kids are a little bit older, right, connecting before correcting them, or before it's, and what I'm saying, it sounds so easy, but very often, when we have so many things that we need to do, let's say with the kids, get them somewhere on time, and we have multiple children, and then there's some chores need to be done, some homework needs to be done, etc., etc. I feel like this is so important for all of us to hear, because it's not only good for kids, but it's also good for our own nervous system to slow down sometimes and just be able to take that breath and, connect with yourself, connect with the situation, with the children, and then the whole process is smoother, right? It doesn't matter what age.
No, it doesn't. And that's what's so beautiful about it. And, thinking about, Dr. Bruce Perry is one of the, he's a pioneer in this work of trauma, stress, brain development, understanding the nervous system. But he has this beautiful diagram where, it goes like this. On the bottom, we have our lower brainstem, and in the middle, we have our middle brainstem, and on the top, we have our cortex. And so what's nice to think about is starting with regulating. So how can we help regulate ourselves and the child? Then we can relate. So how can we relate to our emotions, the child's emotions? And then we can reason. And so oftentimes we go straight to reasoning, right? And so,
yes.
And I coach early childhood teachers, and this is a common thing that happens in the classroom, is the child is dysregulated and then they go straight to a problem-solving situation. But developmentally, the child's top part of the brain is turned off. They are having a meltdown, they're screaming on the floor, they're really dysregulated. And so to be able to make a different choice, or to share, or to wait their turn is really, really difficult, because they're gone, they're long gone. And so when we understand brain development, we don't take it so personally, I think is the biggest thing. Is when we're understanding that this child's having a need, and it actually isn't purposeful, it isn't manipulative, they're having an emotional need. How can I meet their emotional need and relate to them? And then we can get to the reasoning later on.
I love that. That makes so much sense. And it makes so much sense for everyone else, because, when the grown-up is dysregulated, we can't access our upper brain either.
No.
Very often, it takes some effort to get there.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I don't know about you, but I've definitely said things I don't mean, and we all do it,
Yeah.
and it's because we're flooded, and it takes skill over time to be able to recognize what's going on in ourselves, regulate ourselves, take a break, whatever we need to do.
Exactly.
But for kids, it's literally not possible because their brain has not developed in that way yet. So.
Right. And honestly, I want to emphasize this because as parents, as moms, we all said things that we then regret, or did things that we then, questioned. And really, again, there's, being able to connect with yourself and just give yourself some grace and compassion so that you can, later connect with yourself and with your kid. It's so important, right?
Right. Yeah, and not having the feeling that I have to fix it, right? I have to fix it. I have to stop the behavior, because the behavior really is just the tip of the iceberg. There's always a need underneath our behavior, whether it's, especially for children, if it's, they're having an emotional need, they want to have, seek attention, maybe they want to feel in control, whatever it is, they have a need. But oftentimes we pay attention to the externalizing behaviors, right? The kicking, the hitting, the throwing themselves on the ground. And so it does really give us some grace, right? And some
it's because it kind of takes the edge off a little bit, right? I loved it how you said that, underneath of each behavior there's a need that's unmet, right?
For all of us.
For all of us, totally. And it's really, I feel like it's so important to talk about this in terms of, interaction with babies and toddlers, because they don't have words yet. So we kind of, as parents, we kind of know them because they're our kids, but we're not necessarily really sure what's going on in their brain. So it's so important to realize that they have this experience and they're unable to access this brain. So my main takeaway would be paying attention to the cues of the baby, and as if it's some kind of mutual, it's a conversation that if the baby or the kid shows signs of not being interested, not pushing it up on the child, right? And other thing, what stuck with me here is that each behavior is just really an indication of a need. So because the child is dysregulated, so going straight to solution may not help and be as effective, right? I mean, it wouldn't be effective even with a grown-up. When I'm pissed off, give me some solution, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a saying, a quote, it's never in the history of what is it? Never in the history of calm down, or never in the history of someone telling you to calm down, have you calm down, right? Because they're going straight to the cognitive, right? Yeah.
Right, I know, right? Right. So why do we say to our children, calm down, right? While we grown-ups, I mean, for me, that's one of the most annoying phrases someone could say to me.
Right. Yeah. And for children, they don't have that, they don't have the vocabulary to label their feelings yet, right? So they don't understand the difference between frustrated, sad, hurt, upset, but they just have a feeling. And so, being able to being able to relate to them, maybe validating their feelings, talking through it. And a developmental,
And I know that for grown-ups, that helps enormously when you label the feelings. Even if I'm having a moment of discomfort when I'm label my own feelings, this brings me some kind of immediate comfort almost. So I guess for the children also that works this way, right? That helping them label the feelings, the emotions they go through, also helps them regulate. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. If you think about the brain, it regulates your nervous system, right? And especially, for children, because if they want that toy and they can't have that toy, but the first thing we say is, oh, I know you really want that toy. Well, they're going to think they're going to get the toy, but so that's the first thing. So that's going to calm their nervous system down, right? Because we just heard them, they had a need. Right. We validated their need. It doesn't mean that they're going to get that toy, but they might have to wait. But the first thing we did was help regulate and relate to them before we talked about what else they could do. Yeah.
Totally. Fantastic, Jenna. So for those who are now watching us, what would you like them to hear from all this conversation?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, just giving yourself grace and being able to, come back to your breath and to recognize what's going on in your body. And then to be able, to notice your child's cues as well. And just know that that dance, that back and forth interaction is really what is most impactful for brain development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jenna, for sharing this all with us. But before we disconnect, I would love you to share how people can find you, how can they work with you, because I bet many parents would be perhaps interested to work with you. And also in this video, there will be a description containing your contact information. But if you want to say a few words about it, it would be lovely.
Sure, yeah. So the website is rootsofresilience.co. So you can contact me there. Also, you can email me at info@rootsofresilience.co.
Mm-hmm. And do you work one-on-one, or do you have some kind of groups? What do you offer at this moment?
Yeah, so at this point, I am doing one-on-one. So there you are able to sign up to have one-on-one with me. We can do an initial and then some follow-up appointments if needed. And then right now there is a membership opportunity. So there's one course that we have. It's called The Science of Connection. So it's about 2 hours long, broken into 10, 15-minute segments. And parents are able to watch at their own pace. And it really dives more into the science of what we're talking about today and the why behind it. And then it goes into the different things that you can do to build brain development. And so we talk about the roots of resilience in that course. And so we're going to be adding a lot more courses and talks to that. So that's available. And then, yeah, you can reach out to me one-on-one.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jenna. And people will be able to find you in the description of this video and comments. You will find the links. Thank you so much for watching us. And please just message us with any questions, any comments. We'd love to hear if that resonated with you, and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you.